Hello, my name is Scuria-Herman, and today I'll be speaking on the topic of maturity. I guess it's complicated. I'm going to extendedly respond to a comment, just because this person left a very long comment, and I didn't want to just type out a response because I felt like that would be disingenuous to the point they were trying to make. I wanted to elaborate on my thoughts about it because it's very interesting. I didn't read the whole thing because I started reading it and I was like, I want to talk about this more extendedly and actually give it the time of day. This is actually the same comment from the last video where I got the song suggestion and I had said that I wanted to follow up on it later, but now is later. It's a lot later than I thought it would be, but it's later.
This on the topic of is going to be more similar to my response to the reception of my initial CECOT video, but obviously with a lighter tone. I also am thinking of coming back to that just because of all the news and how poorly my initial video was received, and I want to see how or if the opinions on the CECOT have changed from what I said last time.
Alright, so this is from Naked Under My Clothes. I like your videos and I'll always appreciate people tuning into Aesop. I just want to say that I've noticed something in your videos on Aesop's songs that perhaps is indicative of your young age and perhaps generational differences, and that's the perception that his songs are sad or dark. That is something that I have said. I am not denying that. Generally, it's hard for me to sort of envision a world where Aesop's songs are not sad or dark. There's obviously songs like Daylight or, well, Daylight is the only one that fits this narrative I'm trying to pull, but there are songs like Daylight that exist in happiness and, joy and optimism, but they exist in spite of Nightlight. They exist in spite of, well, things are just bad, things are sad, things are dark. Then, of course, there are songs like Long-Legged Larry. That's the other song I was thinking of that was a happy song. That doesn't fit that. So there are songs that, are actually just happy Kirby. Kirby too. There are songs that are just happy and really just fun songs. But most of the time, the happiness and optimism that are in these songs are in spite of the darkness. That's my opinion anyway. And I just want to continue reading this because there are some good points that are brought up. Some are, well, there you go. Maybe I should have read another sentence before saying. Some are, and there's definitely elements of that sprinkled in. But if you ask me, Aesop's lyrics are ultimately just very human. In Blood Sandwich, you took the killing of the gopher as dark and traumatic, and in a way it was, but mostly it was simply one of those classic moments of childhood, perhaps more common before the 2000s. I'll continue. I was going to say something. I want to finish this paragraph first, because we've got a lot to get through. I remember having pet rabbits and finding out my grandpa broke their necks and made stew. Or more topical, being amazed to see a mound of dirt forming in front of me, and all of this new creature burrowing out towards me, and before I could figure out what's happening, someone drives a pitchfork or shovel into the mound and kills it. Now, the importance of this is the sort of generational difference and the definition of humanity and maturity. Because we're looking at it as well, you're young, so you wouldn't understand this. And to a point, I think that there is some merit in that. I think that I haven't lived as much as other people. I definitely don't know much about the world outside of what I already have experienced, and I haven't experienced much. I can't deny any of that. What I would seek to question is whether or not life and humanity should be defined by darkness and trauma and death. That's really my question when I read this. I'm not opposed to anything really that is said here, but I generally think that if we're looking at it oh, my pet rabbits were killed by my grandpa and we ate them, I think that shouldn't necessarily be correlated to an experience of gaining maturity or humanity. I think that that's something that happened that formed your perspective, but I think generally humanity and maturity aren't defined by how old you are. I think that there are some old people who are immature and some young people who are very mature. I'm somewhere in between. I have my moments and I have my moments. But I think that maturity is a separate metric from age, which is what you're bringing up here, is the fact that it is lived experience as well. Humanity isn't defined by anatomy or biology or physiology. I think that, well, especially when I write a lot of non-human characters, and the non-human characters that I write are almost always more human than the human characters, because of the principles, because of the ideas, because of the perspective, because of the attitude. That is what makes people human. The personality, the humanity, not the biology. And you're not saying that here. I'm not saying that you're saying that here. But what I'm saying is that humanity isn't really defined by these sort of outward things, by your body, by how you look, by what you've done in life. I think fundamentally humanity can be achieved in many different ways. And sure, one of those ways is seeing your pet rabbits die. But I think that generally it's dangerous to correlate humanity with, well, you haven't, seen a grisly death of a gopher. I think that Aesop's wrong sock. Aesop rock songs demonstrate humanity, but not in the way that it's like, well, this is just what's supposed to happen. I think it's a combination of these are some dark moments and these are just things that have happened. And I don't really... Yeah, I think that's enough. Let me move on before I get too deep into humanity and maturity. And as for this song, you said it took a turn at the end. She was 87, so she died. I'd say the story went as straight as possible. It's just life. You're a kid, and then you're old, and then you're dead. Gather ye rosebuds while you may, and all that. Happy-go-lucky? I wouldn't call it that either. That's an entirely different vibe. But this is a happy song. Hell, it's downright utopic. The Lucy character possesses so much self-knowledge and confidence that she isn't realistic. She's more akin to a mythical, larger-than-life character, such as you can find in legends. I'd say this is one of Aesop's more simplistic songs. Not that I'm knocking it, but I think it shows that Ace was still developing his style of lyricism when he wrote this, as well as still growing up as a person. It's interesting to note that when looking at the song, you're thinking of it as like, oh, Ace is still growing, and you're looking at it as this is a story of a life, of a utopic life. I would not necessarily say that Lucy had a utopic life. I think that utopia is defined per person, which is why I wouldn't say that she had a utopic life, because I rely on dreams heavily. I don't think that a dreamless... That's why I titled the video, Is a Dreamless Life a Happy One? Personally, from me, I would answer no. Lucy would probably answer yes. You would probably answer yes. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's up to interpretation. I think that's up to how you are as a person, who you are as a human. I think that generally, dreams drive me. Dreams are what make me want to pursue the things that I want to pursue. I think that without dreams, I am lost. Generally. And looking at it as utopic, as optimistic, I don't think so. I think that it's a life that this person enjoyed, but it's, I guess you did say simplistic, I guess kind of simplistic. I would say more so it's a snapshot of a life that passed. And I think that the fact that she had no dreams, her life did sort of just pass by. Because she didn't really, achieve much. She just lived. She did what she set out to do. You could call that an achievement in and of itself, but in my mind, it's a very small picture. And that's why it was sad, because she had a lot of, potential, and she just did what she wanted to do, and then that was it. she didn't really have any wants outside of that. I don't know if I would call that a happy life. And I don't know if I would correlate that to a perspective of... I guess I would correlate that to a perspective of humanity, but not maturity. If that makes sense. But it's interesting for you to say at the end that he was still growing as a person when he wrote that. I don't really have a point to make for that last part. I just thought that was interesting with everything else he said. My Belly is a more happy-go-lucky song, and to a degree so is Long-Legged Larry. I already mentioned Long-Legged Larry. I've had My Belly suggested to me before. I might listen to it next time. The rest are song suggestions. I'll cut these out if they don't add anything to what I've already said. But I agree with you based on what you presented about your perspective, if that makes any sense. I really want to make a video about this just because it's a really interesting comment, and I really enjoyed... I read part of it. I didn't really read the second paragraph, and I wanted to read it on here, but I read most of the first paragraph, I believe, and I just want to make a video on it. I'm in the middle of finals right now, so that's why this took a bit. But yeah, this was really... Like, I might have sounded at some parts that I was like upset or like offended. I wasn't at all. I think that this is a really enjoyable comment. I enjoy getting comments like this. This is really cool, and I just really enjoyed talking about it. What are your thoughts on humanity and maturity, and how that relates to Aesop Rock's discography, I think is the word? Yeah, because I don't really see a perspective of pessimism as maturity. I see that as a perspective that is, justified if you have a certain lived experience, but I don't really correlate that to maturity. I think that citing something like optimism as... This isn't what you said, I'm just saying, I'm extrapolating this from, and just in general. Citing something like optimism as, like, overly innocent and, sort of immature, I think that's a dangerous perspective in itself, because you are sort of cutting off any potential for both happiness and just, I guess, pursuing good things. And I think that that's why I enjoy dreams. That's why I correlate dreams to happiness. Yeah. I'm gonna stop there because I'm sort of like losing my points, I think. I expressed myself better in the first part of the video. Anyway, that's gonna be all from me. So, until next time, adieu. Oh,